He can't give us the numbers just yet, but they did see more voter turnout during this election than they saw in the 2016 Democratic primary. We will be posting those unofficial election results on this race. What's your reaction to President Trump saying the emails on Hunter Biden's laptop is the second biggest political scandal in history? What about no face coverings in the classroom? If you point our camera up, I think we can see it. Just now it's overhead. We're going to try to get you a shot of that chopper. Protesters had actually come up towards the campus. It has been blocked off by police. Check it out. They're moving in right now. We'll show you as they move in towards the protesters. Now, I was going to step in it to show you just how deep it is. I'm really glad I tested it with this tree branch first because, as you can see, that goes really far down. I had packed up my snow boots for the winter thinking that we were getting spring weather. Obviously, I was very wrong, but at least they're getting some love now. We've seen the floodings change pretty drastically, but for the better. Now, I want to bring your attention to some of these debris down here in the roadway.
Wearing masks during the pandemic is a divisive issue. Some can't stand it, others don't mind. Business owners, though, are supposed to enforce it.
If you see someone shopping without one, you can complain to the Department of Health. But what really happens to those complaints? Does anyone really get in trouble? Christina Thompson investigates.
Some shoppers, like Mary Messer, are afraid to go to the store.
You know, people are dying. You may not know directly somebody that died, but I do.
Messer says she's seen so many people ignore the state mask mandates inside the Kroger in Forest, she won't shop there anymore.
They say it's not, you know, it's their right not to wear a mask, but I don't feel like it's your right to make me sick.
Messer has an underlying health condition that puts her in the at-risk category for COVID-19. She sent me photos of what she's seen. Improperly worn masks, no masks at all, and little social distancing. She filed a complaint with the Central Virginia Health Department. Sheila is another scared shopper. She didn't want to show her face on camera or give her last name. She says every time she goes to the Walmart Supercenter on Wards Road in Lynchburg, she sees a shopper without a mask.
I'm concerned for my health. I've got a heart condition and I've got asthma. I've got high blood pressure.
She also filed a complaint with the Virginia Health Department. I asked the local VDH for a list of every complaint made about businesses not following COVID protocol in the Lynchburg area from June 2020 to last month. I poured through almost 3,000 complaints from Lynchburg City and Amherst, Appomattox, Bedford, and Campbell counties. These are the top 6 stores with the most complaints. The Kroger in Forest has the most complaints with 53. The Walmart on Wards Road has the second most complaints with 45. This complaint spreadsheet shows the VDH only followed up once or twice with letters and in-person visits to these stores. The rest of the complaints were passed on to the Virginia Department of Agriculture and Customer Service. The health department says this is because stores that sell food are regulated by the Ag Department.
We do reach out not only via the letters, but also with telephone calls and work with the business to really try to bring them into compliance.
I used the Freedom of Information Act to get the dozens of letters sent to the top 2 stores. I learned the letters are basically a carbon copy of each other. They merely inform each store they violated the governor's mandates and a court summons could follow. Some of the businesses I looked into have upwards of 40, 50 complaints, and they've received multiple letters from you guys detailing those infractions. So my question is there any sort of threshold for how many letters a business can receive from your offices before you take that next step in the penalty process?
Once a business receives 4 complaints, we will perform an on-site investigation. If a business does decide not to comply with the order or ensure that their patrons are complying with the order and really they just really refuse to do so, even after repeated calls, then we may seek legal action.
The punishment is a misdemeanor charge, but this hasn't happened for any business in our area. Why even have these mandates if there's not going to be harsher penalties for businesses that break them besides just a letter?
Well, there will be if a business refuses to comply. Again, we're trying to work with the businesses. We don't want a business to go out of business because of this order.
I asked Republican State Senator Steve Newman that same question.
That if people are trying to do the right thing, they're not going to be charged with this crime. And I think that's the right thing to do.
I also reached out to several Democratic state lawmakers. So far, I haven't been able to reach or schedule an interview with any of them. So I reached out to the corporate offices of Kroger and Walmart about their large number of complaints. Kroger sent me a statement saying, quote, "We do not have anyone available for an interview on this story and we're not able to participate, but we appreciate you reaching out." Walmart never answered any of my requests. Back to you.
Worker is accused of taking advantage of a couple by squatting in their home.
All right, Christina Thompson has the investigation you'll only see on ABC 13.
This forest home went under contract for sale in October of 2019. According to this possession by purchase contract, the buyers, Scotty and Frances Booker, could start living in the home 1 year out from the close date. The Bookers just needed to pay a monthly fee of $1,800 to the owners of the home, Joe and Brenda Orlando, and complete the purchase in November 2020. But when closing day officially came, the Bookers didn't show up. The Bookers' lawyer, Sarah Manwaran, says they were nervous of attending a meeting due to COVID-19. Now, the Orlandos want them out.
We just need to sell the house.
The Orlando's real estate agent, Moyanne Harding, says this type of deal isn't too common as it puts a lot of trust in the buyer's hands.
And because I thought he was an upstanding broker, that there wouldn't be any problem.
According to the Divine Fog Realty website, the Bookers have more than 10 years experience in the industry. I pulled this court complaint filed by the Orlandos against the Bookers. The complaint says the Bookers have been living in the Orlandos' home illegally since failing to close in November 2020. I asked Scotty Booker about this over the phone. It was supposed to close months ago.
I think you better trade very, very lightly with that.
What do you mean by that?
I think you better trade very, very lightly. The contract says on or about, which means when it exceeds the closing date. We got a letter from the homeowner yesterday that they want to get this thing closed uncontested.
I looked back through the purchase agreement. It reads that settlement needs to be made on or before November 2020 or a reasonable time thereafter if the purchaser or seller is making diligent effort to satisfy any contingencies contained in this agreement. The court complaint argues the Bookers did not make any diligent efforts. The Bookers say they have and do still wish to purchase the home.
All we were trying to do is get it back on the schedule to close.
Booker also declined to give me the letter he referenced in our phone call, so I asked the Orlandos about it.
No, that's not true. I sent them a letter and told them that they need to be out of the house.
The Orlandos attorney sent me a copy of the letter verifying the Orlandos no longer wish to close with the Bookers. I still wanted an outside opinion, so I reached out to Mike Dardane, Charlottesville real estate litigation attorney of over 18 years.
From my review of the contracts, the Bookers no longer have a right to reside on the premises. When they failed to close pursuant to the terms of the purchase contract, they lost the right to remain in the property.
He had a whole year to get his finances together. He needed that time. They were kind enough to allow him to do that.
The Orlandos say they don't trust the Bookers to honor the contract they signed, nor as legitimate buyers for the home. However, they did give the Bookers permission to remain in the home until February 20th. Law enforcement officials tell me it's up to a judge to make the final decision for an eviction. Legally, the Orlandos won't be able to get their home back until after the court hearing. That court date has not yet been set.
You are not receiving the benefits that you deserve. That's because the Virginia Employment Commission is backlogged by more than 5 months.
ABC 13's Christina Thompson investigates what's causing it and what needs to be done to help the VEC catch up.
Vincent Williams started drawing unemployment in March after he was let go from his job at Walmart during pandemic cuts. In June, he says he stopped getting those benefits because the Virginia Employment Commission had incorrect information that he quit instead of being let go.
If you don't get it, you're going to be evicted or put out on the street.
Williams sent this document from his old employer to the VEC.
It's the document from Walmart.
It shows he was let go and is in good standing, meaning Williams is still eligible for unemployment benefits. He's been fighting to get those back ever since.
Every time I call, it says leave a message. The mailbox is full, and that mailbox with this number has been full all the time.
Right now, the VEC is more than 5 months backlogged as they work through more than 70,000 disputes just like Williams's. I asked Joyce Fogg, a VEC representative, about this.
60% of those who are not being paid right now, which is a large number, were either terminated for cause, or they voluntarily quit their jobs, which makes them ineligible.
So what about those people in the 40% who might have been flagged, but they should still be receiving these benefits? You say to call, but a lot of them can't get through.
Well, I know there have been some issues with that. We've had some problems with people getting through. They just need to keep trying to call.
Fogg says the backlog stems from a 35-year-old computer system that is struggling to work through the sheer number of disputes. The VEC did increase call center staffing from 72 to over 500 employees. Senator Steve Newman was instrumental in making this happen by pushing through a budget amendment that included more funding for the VEC. But he says it's still not enough.
Go into the session, pull the VEC before us, pull the Northam administration before us, and find out why this is just taking so long.
Without it, it's disaster, it's destruction.
So people like Vincent Williams can make it through these tough times. Senator Newman thinks this issue will continue well into next year as lawmakers work through it in January's session. Until then, the VEC tells me employees will continue working 7 days a week, including most holidays, to catch up.
Our Christina Thompson has the first on-camera interview with Falwell's fitness trainer. It is a story you will only see on ABC 13.
Jerry Falwell's personal trainer, Ben Crosswhite, says years of scrutiny over a business deal between the two is catching up with him. Now he wants to set the record straight.
You know, they're making comments on Instagram and Facebook about my son and, you know, my wife and family. And, you know, that's when I start to take it more to heart. And, it's really hard to look past that. So it's been hard. It has.
The deal itself happened back in 2016.
I wrote a pro forma, did a business plan, presented it to the board, presented it to the executives at Liberty.
According to federal law, as a private institution, Liberty was not required to seek out any other bids. The buyer-seller agreement shows Crosswhite purchased LU's tennis and gym facility for $1.2 million. That's the same price the building was assessed for, according to this report from the city of Lynchburg. The buyer-seller agreement shows Liberty also forked over about $646,000 in rent up front to reserve the rights to use the tennis courts for 9 years.
That's where they get that sweet deal from.
But Crosswhite says in hindsight, this deal was not actually so sweet. Liberty University still had claims to these tennis courts, their teams kicking off paying customers and using them free of charge.
And that means people weren't doing memberships annually. There was a lot of people that wouldn't do it when the tennis team was in session.
I reached out to 5 expert real estate lawyers across the area and asked them to look through all the documents surrounding the deal. Jim Gilbert, real estate lawyer of over 25 years, says,
I think it's naive to say that the gentleman got a sweet deal, and there are a number of reasons why. Number one, my understanding is that the building had some age to it.
The assessment report shows the building was built in 1973, making it 43 years old at the time Crosswhite purchased it. These financial documents from LU show the building had a whole slew of problems, and the university was losing $100,000 on it every year.
Now that they know that Mr. Falwell was involved, they're now looking at it through a lens of suspicion.
So why is this deal resurfacing in recent weeks? Crosswhite thinks it's an effort to connect him to the affair Falwell announced to the Washington Examiner between his wife Becky and a then 20-year-old pool boy, Giancarlo Granda, at a Miami hotel.
They want it to fit the bill. They want it to play into their narrative of me being the second pool boy kind of thing. And it's just not true.
Falwell resigned as president of Liberty University just days after he broke the news of his wife's affair. After his resignation, LU hired an outside group to investigate all real estate deals throughout Falwell's entire presidency at the school. According to officials at Liberty, this deal with Crosswhite would fall into the investigation because it happened during the time Falwell was president.
I welcome it. There's nothing that that's sketchy behind the transaction. It was a normal business, legitimate transaction, and I'm kind of looking forward to them putting that out there.
Liberty officials are not doing any interviews because this is an open investigation, but they did send me documents and statements made by the school in past years. All of them, LU officials stand behind the deal. I reached out to Jerry Falwell for a comment, but did not hear back. Reporting live in Lynchburg, Christina Thompson, ABC 13 News.